Captain Taman Park stared at the message on his screen for the third time. The words seemed too good to be true. After 10 long years of war, the Vorthak wanted peace. Not just any peace, but a real treaty that would give humanity several star systems and open trade routes between their worlds. The message had come through Ambassador Sora Kim at Kepler Station. She was humanity's best diplomat, someone who could read alien body language better than most humans could read their own kind. If she thought the offer was real, then maybe it was worth considering. Tae-Min touched the communication button on his chair. "Get me Admiral Lee," he said to his bridge crew. Within minutes, Admiral Ji-Hoon Lee's face appeared on the main screen. The older man looked tired. The war had aged him more than the years should have. Gray streaks ran through his black hair, and deep lines marked his face. "You've seen the message," Ji-Hoon said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. What do you think?" Ji-Hoon was quiet for a moment. "The politicians on Earth are excited. The colonies are pushing for peace talks. Everyone is tired of fighting." Tae-Min nodded. He understood. The war had cost humanity millions of lives and most of their resources. Every family had lost someone. Every colony lived in fear of the next Vorthak attack, but you don't trust it, Tae-Min said. "Would you?" Before Tae-Min could answer, another voice joined the conversation. "Admiral, Captain, this is Intelligence Officer Haijin Choi. I need to show you something." Haijin's image split the screen with the Admiral's. She was young for an intelligence officer, but her mind was sharp as a laser blade. If anyone could spot a trap, it would be her. "I've been studying Vorthak diplomatic history," she said. "In the past 50 years, they've offered peace treaties to 3 other species: the Kaleri, the Threnody, and the Zephyrians." "And?" Ji-Hoon asked. "All 3 species accepted the treaties. All 3 had big signing ceremonies. And all 3 disappeared completely within a year of signing." The silence on the bridge was heavy. Tae-Min felt his stomach drop. "Disappeared how?" "That's just it. No one knows. Their worlds went silent. When other species sent ships to check, they found empty planets. No bodies, no signs of fighting, no clues. Just empty cities and abandoned ships." Admiral Lee rubbed his forehead. "The Earth Council won't want to hear this." "They need to hear it," Haijin said firmly. "This isn't just suspicious. It's a pattern." Tae-Min looked at the peace treaty message. Again, the offer was generous. Too generous. The Vorthak were offering humanity 3 contested star systems, including Tau Ceti with its valuable mining operations. They were also promising trade agreements that would make Earth rich beyond imagination. "What does Ambassador Kim think?" he asked. "She's cautious," Ji-Hoon replied, "but the pressure from Earth is enormous. The families of soldiers want their loved ones to come home. The colonies want to rebuild without fear. The politicians see a chance to be remembered as peacemakers." A new voice interrupted them. "Excuse me, but I have concerns about the location." Dr. Min-Ho Yoon appeared on screen. He was an archaeologist, someone who studied ancient alien civilizations. His specialty was the mysterious ruins found on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. "Doctor?" Ji-Hoon prompted. "The ceremony is planned for Nexus Prime. I've studied that world extensively. The ruins there aren't just old buildings. They're part of something much larger and more complex. Something that was built by a civilization we call the Ancients." "What kind of something?" Tae-Min asked. "I'm not entirely sure. But the energy readings from my last survey were unlike anything I've seen. The ruins aren't just monuments. They're machinery of some kind." Haijin leaned forward. "What kind of machinery? That's what worries me." "I couldn't figure it out completely, but the power levels were enormous. Whatever the ancients built there, it's still active after thousands of years." Admiral Lee looked grim. "So we have a suspicious peace offer. A history of species disappearing after signing treaties, and mysterious ancient technology at the proposed location. That's about the size of it," Tae-Min said. "And the Earth Council still wants us to go?" "Hey!" New message appeared on Tae-Min's screen. It was from Earth Central Command. The orders were clear. Humanity would attend the peace ceremony. Captain Park was to lead an escort fleet of 12 ships to provide security for the diplomatic mission. Looks like we don't have a choice, Taemin said, showing the orders to the others. Ji-hoon sighed. 12 ships against the entire Vorthak fleet if this goes wrong. Actually, Taemin said slowly, 12 ships might be exactly what we need. What do you mean? Taemin was thinking fast. If this was a trap, then humanity needed to be ready for it. But they also couldn't ignore the possibility of real peace. Too many lives depended on getting this right. We go to the ceremony, he said, but we go prepared for the worst. Explain. My 12 ships will be the official escort? But what if they're not the only human ships in the system? Hyjin smiled for the first time in the conversation. Stealth ships. Exactly. We've captured enough Vorthak stealth technology over the years. Our engineers have improved it. We could have 40 ships hidden in the Nexus Prime system, and the Vorthak would never know they were there. Admiral Lee was nodding slowly. It's risky. If they detect our hidden fleet, it could start a war even if the peace offer was genuine. And if we go unprepared and it's a trap, humanity loses its entire leadership and most advanced ships. Taemin countered. Dr. Yoon spoke up. There's something else to consider. If the ancients really did build some kind of advanced technology on Nexus Prime, and the Vorthak are planning to use it against us, then we need to understand how it works. Can you do that? Ji-hoon asked. I'll need a team of specialists and some very advanced equipment. But yes, I think I can figure out what we're dealing with. Hyjin was already working on her tablet. I can have detailed intelligence reports on every Vorthak ship and commander likely to be at the ceremony. If we're walking into a trap, at least we'll know who's setting it. Admiral Lee made his decision. Very well, Captain Park, you'll lead the official escort. I'll coordinate the hidden fleet from the dreadnought Indomitable. Dr. Yoon, gather your team. Officer Choi, I want everything you can find on Vorthak tactics and the missing species. What about Ambassador Kim? Taemin asked. She continues with the diplomatic mission. If there's even a chance this peace offer is real, we can't waste it. But she know about our preparations. The meeting ended, and Taemin found himself alone on his bridge. He looked out at the stars and wondered what they would find at Nexus Prime. Were they heading toward peace or toward the biggest trap in human history? Either way, humanity would be ready. They always were. 3 days later, Taemin's fleet left Earthspace. 12 ships in perfect formation, carrying diplomats, scientists, and soldiers toward an uncertain future. Behind them, hidden in the darkness between stars, 40 more ships followed. The trap was waiting for them at Nexus Prime. But for the first time in 10 years of war, Taemin was confident about humanity's chances. The Vorthak were about to learn that humans were very hard to catch. The journey to Nexus Prime took 5 days through hyperspace. When Taemin's fleet dropped back into normal space, the sight before them was impressive. Dozens of alien ships filled the space around the ancient world, representing species from across the galaxy. That's a lot of witnesses for a peace treaty, said Lieutenant Commander Dae-yoon Shin from her position at the tactical station. Tae-min studied the sensor readings. Or a lot of victims for a trap. The Vorthak had built an enormous complex around the ancient ruins on Nexus Prime's surface. From orbit, it looked like a small city made of gleaming metal and crystal. Massive screens showed the ceremony preparations to ships throughout the system. Incoming transmission from the Vorthak flagship, reported Communications Officer Bong-soo Kim, put it on screen. The image that appeared made Taemin's skin crawl, though he tried not to show it. General Vextar was typical of his species. Tall, thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray leather. His large black eyes showed no emotion that humans could read. Captain Park, Vextar said in heavily accented but clear human language. Welcome to Nexus Prime. We are honored by humanity's presence at this historic event. Thank you, General. We're pleased to be here. Your ships will be assigned orbital positions shortly. We have prepared quarters for your delegation on the surface. The ceremony will begin in 3 days, allowing time for proper preparation and cultural exchange. That's very thoughtful, indeed. We believe that true peace can only come from understanding between our peoples. Please bring your finest scientists and diplomats. This is a moment that will be remembered forever. The transmission ended, and Taemin felt uneasy. Something about Vextar's manner bothered him, but he couldn't identify what. "Captain," Gin said quietly, "I'm reading some strange energy signatures from the other ships." "What kind of strange?" "Low-level neural dampening. Fields. Very subtle, but they're there." Taemin frowned. Neural dampening was a form of mind control technology. It didn't completely control someone's thoughts, but it made them calm, compliant, and less likely to ask difficult questions. Are we being affected? No, sir, our shields are blocking it. But the other species ships don't seem to have the same protection. This was getting worse by the minute. Taemin activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message to Dr. Yoon, who was preparing to beam down to the surface with his archaeological team. 20 minutes later, the doctor called back. "Captain, we need to talk privately." They met in Taemin's ready room, a small office behind the bridge. Dr. Yoon looked excited and worried at the same time. "I've been scanning the surface," he said. "The ruins on Nexus Prime are far more extensive than we thought. They go deep underground, maybe several kilometers." "What kind of ruins?" "That's just it. I don't think they're ruins at all. I think they're still functional." Dr. Yoon activated a holographic display showing the scan results. The image revealed a vast network of tunnels, chambers, and machinery buried beneath Nexus Prime's surface. "This is incredible," he continued. "The technology is unlike anything we've seen. The power levels alone could run Earth's entire energy grid for 1,000 years. What do you think it does?" "I'm not sure yet, but I have some theories. The energy pattern suggests some kind of transportation or teleportation system. Maybe something that can move objects across vast distances instantaneously." Taemin felt cold. "Or move them somewhere they can't escape from." "Exactly what I was thinking." Meanwhile, on the surface, Ambassador Sora Kim was conducting her own investigation. The Vorthak had assigned her quarters in their diplomatic complex, a luxurious building that overlooked the ancient ruins. Her first meeting was with representatives from the other species attending the ceremony. There were delegates from the Altarian Republic, the Centauri Federation, the Rigel Collective, and a dozen other civilizations. What bothered her was how agreeable they all were. Every question she asked received pleasant, vague answers. Every concern she raised was dismissed with calm smiles. When she mentioned the neural dampening fields, none of them seemed to know what she was talking about. "Perhaps you are simply tired from your journey," suggested Ambassador Krelter of the Altarians. "The ceremony will be wonderful. General Vextar has planned everything perfectly." Sora excused herself and returned to her quarters. She immediately activated her secure communicator and called Intelligence Officer Haijin Choi aboard Taemin's ship. "Something is very wrong here," she reported. "The other ambassadors are acting like they're drugged, and some of them represent species that were at war with the Vorthak just months ago." "At war?" Haijin asked. "According to my files, the Altarians signed a peace treaty with the Vorthak 8 months ago." "That's impossible." "I was at the Altarian embassy on Earth 6 months ago. Ambassador Krelter told me personally that his people would never surrender to Vorthak aggression." Haijin was quiet for a moment. "Ambassador, I think Krelter has been here for 8 months. I think he signed that treaty and then never left." The implications were terrifying. Sora looked out her window at the ancient ruins below. Somewhere down there was technology that could make entire species disappear, and humanity had just delivered its leadership right into the middle of it. That evening, Dr. Yoon led a small team to examine the ruins up close. The Vorthak guides were helpful and informative, explaining the historical significance of various structures, but they carefully steered the humans away from certain areas. "This section is unstable," one guide explained when Dr. Yoon tried to approach a particularly interesting building. The ancients used construction methods we don't fully understand. For your safety, please stay with the approved tour route. Dr. Yoon pretended to agree, but he had brought portable scanners that could work from a distance. What he detected made his blood run cold. The unstable areas were actually the most active parts of the ancient complex. Massive amounts of energy were flowing through hidden conduits. Something was being prepared down there, something that required enormous power. He also detected something else. Faint life signs scattered throughout the underground complex. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. All in some kind of suspended animation. Dr. Yoon realized with horror that the missing species hadn't been killed. They were being stored somewhere beneath Nexus Prime, kept alive for unknown purposes. Back in orbit, Captain Taemin received reports from all his people on the surface. Each report made the situation clearer and more dangerous. It's definitely a trap, he told Admiral Lee during their encrypted communication. The question is, what exactly are they planning? Dr. Yoon thinks the ancient technology can transport large objects instantly, Lee replied. Maybe they plan to send our ships somewhere we can't escape from. Or send us somewhere they can study us at their leisure. Either way, we can't let the ceremony happen as planned. Taemin agreed, but they faced a terrible problem. If they revealed their knowledge too early, the Vorthak might simply activate their weapon immediately. If they waited too long, they might not be able to stop it. How long until our hidden fleet is in position? He asked. 6 hours. And how long until the ceremony? 36 hours. It would have to be enough. Humanity had walked into the trap, just as the Vorthak planned. But unlike the other species, humans had come prepared to bite back. On the surface, the final preparations for the peace ceremony continued. Alien diplomats rehearsed their roles, unaware that they were practicing for their own disappearance. Vorthak technicians made last-minute adjustments to equipment that would seal humanity's fate, but deep in the ancient ruins, Dr. Yoon and his team worked frantically to understand the alien technology. If they could figure out how it worked, maybe they could turn it against the Vorthak. The trap was almost ready to spring. But so was humanity's response. The next 30 hours would determine whether the human species would join the other missing civilizations, or whether they would teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating human determination. What the Vorthak didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this situation for months. The moment Ambassador Sora Kim had received the first peace treaty proposal, Admiral Ji-hoon Lee had activated something called Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega was the creation of Colonel Woo Jin-han, humanity's most brilliant military strategist. Han had spent years studying alien civilizations that had mysteriously disappeared. He had developed contingency plans for situations where diplomatic meetings might actually be elaborate traps. Never trust an enemy who suddenly wants to be your friend, Han had written in his strategy manual. Always assume they have a hidden motive, and always have a bigger surprise ready than whatever they're planning. Captain Taemin's 12 ships weren't just a diplomatic escort. They were the visible part of a much larger force. Hidden throughout the Nexus Prime system were 40 additional human vessels, using advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to Vorthak sensors. The stealth technology itself was a perfect example of human adaptability. 3 years earlier, humanity had captured a damaged Vorthak scout ship. Instead of just studying the alien technology, human engineers had improved it. They added quantum dampening fields that bent light around the ships, making them effectively invisible, leading. This hidden fleet was Captain Jae-Sung Kong aboard the experimental dreadnought Indomitable. The ship was humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with weapons and defenses that the Vorthak had never seen. All stealth ships report ready. Kong transmitted to Admiral Lee using quantum-encrypted channels that the Vorthak couldn't detect. Excellent. Maintain position until Captain Park gives the signal. But the hidden fleet was only part of humanity's preparation. Aboard Taemin's flagship, Dr. Yoon-Young Cho was working on something even more ambitious. Dr. Cho was a quantum physicist who specialized in dimensional technology. She had spent months studying the reports about the ancient ruins on Nexus Prime, her analysis had led to an incredible discovery. The ancient transportation system works both ways, she explained to Tae Min during a private briefing. It can send objects to distant locations, but it can also bring objects from distant locations to here. What do you mean? I mean, we can use their own weapon to bring reinforcements from anywhere in human space, instantly. Dr. Cho showed him the quantum equations she had developed. I've been working with our engineers to place quantum anchor points throughout human territory. Ships, weapons, even entire space stations can be transported to Nexus Prime in seconds if we can gain control of the ancient system. It was a plan so audacious that it took Tae Min's breath away. Instead of just defending against the Vorthak trap, humanity planned to turn it into their own strategic advantage, but gaining control of the ancient technology would require getting close to it. That's where Lieutenant Colonel Bong-Soo-Oh came in. Oh was the leader of humanity's most elite special forces unit. For the past week, his team had been infiltrating the Vorthak complex on Nexus Prime's surface. They posed as maintenance workers, cultural attaches, and technical specialists. The Vorthak security was good, but it was designed to keep armies out, not individual infiltrators. Those people moved through the complex like ghosts, placing quantum transmitters at key points around the ancient ruins. Phase 1 complete, O reported to Tae Min. We have eyes and ears throughout their operation. Phase 2 begins tonight. Phase 2 involved getting into the underground complex where the ancient technology was housed. This was far more dangerous. But O's team had trained for exactly this kind of mission. Meanwhile, Dr. Min Ho-yoon was conducting his own investigation of the ruins. His official role was as a cultural observer, studying the ancient civilization for historical purposes. His real mission was to identify the control mechanisms for the dimensional gateway system. Working with him was Chief Engineer Se-young Nam, who had brought portable quantum computers capable of interfacing with ancient alien systems. If they could crack the control codes, humanity would have access to technology that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The control room is here, Yoon whispered to Nam as they examined architectural diagrams in their shared quarters. 3 levels down, directly beneath the main ceremonial platform. Can we get to it? Not through normal access routes. But I've been studying the ventilation systems. The ancients built this place for beings much larger than humans. We should be able to move through their air ducts. Nam smiled grimly. Crawling through alien air ducts to steal ancient technology. Not exactly what I expected when I joined the space service. Gets the blood pumping, though. While the technical teams prepared their infiltration, Ambassador Sora Kim was working on the diplomatic angle. She had identified several alien ambassadors who seemed less affected by the neural dampening fields than others. Something is wrong. Here, she told Ambassador Thetan 9 of the Silicon Collective during a private conversation. Your people have been at the ceremony for 6 months. Don't you want to go home? Thetan 9 was a crystalline being whose species communicated through harmonic vibrations. For a moment, confusion flickered across the alien's faceted features. Home, Thetan 9 hummed uncertainly. Yes, we should. But the ceremony is so important. General Vexstar says we must stay until... The confusion faded, replaced by the same peaceful compliance that affected all the other ambassadors. But for just a moment, Kim had seen something else. Fear. She repeated the conversation with representatives from 3 other species. Each time she got the same result. A brief moment of awareness followed by a return to artificial calm. The neural dampening wasn't perfect. It could be broken, at least temporarily. Kim began working on a plan to free as many of the alien diplomats as possible when the time came. As the day of the ceremony approached, all of humanity's preparations came together. The hidden fleet was in position. The infiltration teams were ready. The technical specialists had their equipment prepared, but there was one more element to humanity's plan, something that even Captain Tae Min didn't know about until the last moment. Admiral Lee contacted him privately the night before the ceremony. Captain, there's something else you need to know about Protocol Omega. Sir? We're not just here to escape the trap or even to turn it against the Vorthak. We're here to steal the ancient technology. Taemin was stunned. Sir, that's incredibly dangerous. If we don't take this opportunity, humanity will always be vulnerable to this kind of attack. The ancient technology is too powerful to leave in Vorthak hands. What if it's too powerful for human hands as well? Lee was quiet for a moment. That's a risk we'll have to take. The alternative is letting the Vorthak use it to eliminate any species that opposes them. The final preparations were completed just hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. O's infiltration team was in position within the underground complex. Dr. Cho had her quantum computers ready to interface with the ancient systems. Captain Kang's hidden fleet was prepared to strike at a moment's notice. As dawn broke over Nexus Prime, thousands of beings gathered in the ancient amphitheater for what they believed would be a historic peace ceremony. Alien diplomats took their assigned positions, their minds clouded by Vorthak neural dampening technology. At the center of it all, General Vextar prepared to activate the ancient weapon that would eliminate humanity's leadership and add another species to the Vorthak's collection of victims. But in the shadows and hidden places throughout the complex, human special forces waited for their signal. In orbit, 40 invisible ships prepared to decloak an attack. Deep underground, human scientists worked frantically to crack the codes that would give them control of technology older than human civilization. The trap was about to spring. But the Vorthak were about to learn that when humans walk into a trap, they make sure they can turn it inside out. Captain Taemin stood on the ceremonial platform, wearing his dress uniform and carrying no visible weapons. To the Vorthak, he looked like a helpless victim waiting for slaughter. They had no idea that he was actually the trigger for the most audacious military operation in human history. The ceremony was about to begin, and so was humanity's counterattack. The ceremony began exactly at noon, local time on Nexus Prime. Hundreds of diplomats from dozens of species filled the ancient amphitheater, all wearing their finest ceremonial clothing. The scene was magnificent, with colorful banners representing different civilizations fluttering in the gentle breeze. General Vextar stood at the center of the platform, holding an ornate device that was supposedly the key to activating the peace treaty. In reality, it was the control mechanism for the ancient dimensional weapon hidden beneath their feet. Today marks a new era, Vextar announced, his voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater's perfect acoustics. Today, the long war between the Vorthak Confederation and humanity comes to an end. Today, we begin a future of cooperation and mutual prosperity. The alien diplomats applauded politely. Many of them had been here for months, their minds clouded by neural dampening fields. They no longer remembered their original missions or their concerns about Vorthak intentions. Captain Taemin stood with the human delegation, his face showing appropriate diplomatic interest. Inside, he was counting down the seconds until the trap would spring. The ancient ones who built this sacred place understood the importance of unity, Vextar continued. They created technology that could bring different species together across the vast distances of space. Today, we will use their gift to ensure that peace spreads throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Sora Kim noticed something strange about the way Vextar spoke. He kept glancing at a small device on his wrist, as if waiting for something. She activated her hidden communicator and sent a coded message to Taemin. He's waiting for a signal. It's happening soon. Taemin nodded slightly, then touched his own communicator. The signal went out to Lieutenant Colonel Bongsu O's team in the underground complex, to Dr. Yunyoung Cho at her quantum computers, and to Captain Jae-Sung Kong's hidden fleet in orbit. Vextar raised the ornate control device above his head. Let this moment be remembered forever. Let the joining of our civilizations mark the beginning of... He pressed the activation button. Nothing happened. Vextar pressed the button again, harder this time. Still nothing. A look of confusion crossed his alien features, quickly followed by anger. What is the meaning of this? He snarled at his technicians. That's when Dr. Cho's voice came through the amphitheater's sound system. The meaning, General, is that humans don't like walking into traps. The ancient ruins around the ceremony suddenly came alive with light. Energy flowed through crystalline conduits that had been dark for thousands of years. The dimensional gateway was activating, but not under Vorthic control. I should explain, Dr. Cho continued, her voice calm and professional. We've been studying your little trap for months. We know about the missing species. We know about the neural dampening fields. And we know about the ancient technology you've been planning to use against us. Vexstar was frantically working his control device, but the systems weren't responding. To him anymore, impossible. The ancient codes are encrypted. No one can break them. You're right, Dr. Cho replied. No one can break them. But humans don't break codes when we can convince them to work for us instead. Deep in the underground complex, Chief Engineer Se-Young Nam was interfacing directly with the ancient computer systems. Instead of trying to hack them, he had found a way to communicate with them. The ancient artificial intelligence that ran the systems had been dormant for millennia. But it was still functional, and it was very interested in meeting a species that showed respect for technology instead of just trying to steal it. The ancient AI doesn't like the Vorthek much, Nam reported to Dr. Cho. Apparently they've been rather rude to it for the past several years. Above ground, the dimensional gateway began to open. But instead of trapping the humans, it was bringing something else through. The first ship to emerge was Captain Kang's dreadnought Indomitable, materializing directly above the ceremonial platform. The massive vessel cast a shadow over the entire amphitheater as its weapons powered up. This is Captain Jae-Sung Kang of the Human Defense Fleet, his voice boomed from the ship's speakers. General Vexstar, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit genocide. More ships began emerging from the gateway. Not just the 40 vessels that had been hidden in the system, but reinforcements from across human space. Cruisers, destroyers, and support ships filled the sky above Nexus Prime. The Vorthak fleet, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond. But they had been expecting to trap a small diplomatic mission, not fight a full-scale battle against a prepared human fleet. On the platform, Vexstar was reaching for a weapon when Lieutenant Colonel O's Special Forces team revealed themselves. They had been positioned throughout the amphitheater, disguised as maintenance workers and protocol officers. I wouldn't do that if I were you, O said calmly, his rifle pointed at the Vorthik general. My orders are to take you alive, but I have some flexibility in how alive. Around the amphitheater, more human soldiers were appearing, systematically disabling Vorthik guards and securing alien diplomats. The neural dampening field generators were shut down one by one, as the artificial calm lifted from their minds. The alien ambassadors began to remember who they really were and why they had come to Nexus Prime. Many of them looked around in confusion and growing horror. By the 7 moons, whispered Ambassador Krelter of the Altarians. How long have I been here? My government. They must think I'm dead. Ambassador Sora Kim stepped forward to address the confused diplomats. You've been prisoners, she said gently. The Vorthik have been using ancient technology and neural dampening to keep you here. But you're free now. Some of the alien diplomats began to weep. Others flew into rage as they realized how they had been manipulated. A few simply stared in shock, unable to process what had happened to them. Captain Taemin confronted General Vexstar directly. How many species have you destroyed this way? You understand nothing, Vexstar hissed. We are not the architects of this trap. We are victims, just as you would have been. Explain. The ancient technology. It does not belong to us. We serve others, beings far more powerful than your primitive minds can comprehend. Before Taemin could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the complex. Dr. Cho's voice came through the communicators with urgent news. Captain, we have a problem. The ancient AI is detecting massive dimensional distortions at the edge of the galaxy. Something is coming through from another dimension, and it's big. Dr. Min Ho Yoon, who had been studying the ancient archives during the battle, looked up from his portable computer with a pale face. Captain, I think I know what Vexstar meant. The Vorthak aren't the ones running this operation. What do you mean? According to these records, the ancient civilization didn't just disappear. They were consumed by something from another dimension, something that feeds on intelligent life. The dimensional gateway was still active, but now it was showing something that made everyone's blood run cold. At the edge of the galaxy, massive ships were emerging from dimensional rifts. Ships that didn't look built so much as grown, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and writhe even at this distance. "The Devourers," Vextar said quietly. "They have been using us to gather tribute for centuries. Every species we captured, every world we conquered, it was all feeding them, and now they are ready to harvest this entire galaxy." Captain Taman realized that humanity had stumbled into something far worse than a simple alien trap. They had uncovered an invasion by interdimensional parasites that threatened every living being in the galaxy, but as he looked around at his people, at the freed alien diplomats, and at the ancient technology now under human control, Taman felt something that would have surprised him just hours earlier. He felt confident. "General," he said to Vextar, "I think it's time you and your people switch sides. Because humanity just became the best hope your galaxy has. The real war was about to begin." But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy would face the Devourers with united forces and the most advanced technology ever created. The trap had become an opportunity. And humanity was just getting started. The ancient archives beneath Nexus. Prime told a story that chilled everyone who read it. Dr. Min Ho Yoon worked frantically to translate the records while the dimensional distortions at the galaxy's edge grew stronger. The ancients called them the Devourers, he reported to the emergency command meeting in the underground complex. "They're not from our dimension originally. They exist in the spaces between realities, feeding on the life energy of entire civilizations." Captain Taemin studied the holographic displays showing the approaching threat. The Devourer ships were massive, some the size of small moons. Worse, they seemed to phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to track or target with conventional weapons. "How did the ancients fight them?" asked Admiral Ji-Hoon Lee, who had arrived with reinforcements through the dimensional gateway. "That's the problem," Yin replied grimly. "They didn't. According to these records, the ancients tried to hide from the Devourers by building this gateway network. They planned to evacuate their entire civilization to another galaxy." "Did it work?" "No, the Devourers found them anyway." The last entry in the archives talks about the Devourers consuming not just their bodies and technology, but their very hope and dreams. General Vextar, now under guard but cooperating, spoke up from his position at the table. "This is why my people have served them for so long. We tried to resist once. They destroyed 3 of our worlds and then showed us what they could do to the rest. What do they want?" Ambassador Sura Kim asked. "Everything," Vextar replied. "They feed on intelligent life, but not just the physical form. They consume the spark that makes a species unique, the qualities that make them who they are. After they're done, worlds become empty shells populated by mindless husks." Captain Yu Jin Song of the science vessel Discovery had been monitoring the approaching fleet. Her report was not encouraging. "The lead elements will reach the outer colonies in 6 days. Based on their current speed, they'll be here at Nexus Prime in 2 weeks." "How many ships are we talking about?" asked Admiral Lee. "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. And they're all armed with weapons that can tear holes in space itself." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of the threat. They were facing an enemy that had consumed countless civilizations across multiple dimensions over millions of years. But Captain Taemin had been thinking about the problem differently. "Dr. Cho, you said the ancient dimensional technology works. Both ways. Can it be used as a weapon?" Dr. Yoon-Young Cho looked up from her quantum computers. "I've been wondering the same thing. Theoretically, if we could reverse the polarity of the gateway network, we might be able to create a dimensional cascade that would trap the Devourers in a collapsing pocket universe. Theoretically, the power requirements would be enormous. We'd need to channel the entire energy output of multiple stars through the gateway network simultaneously. And someone would have to coordinate the process from here, at the center of the network, which means which means Nexus Prime would have to be sacrificed. The dimensional cascade would destroy this entire star system. General Vexstar was nodding. Slowly, it could work. My people have studied Devourer technology for centuries. They exist partially outside normal space-time, which makes them nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. But a dimensional cascade would affect their native realm directly. Would it destroy them? Admiral Lee asked. No, Vexstar admitted. But it would trap them in an artificial dimension that feeds on itself. They would become their own food source, locked in an endless cycle of consumption that leads nowhere. Doctor. Yoon looked up from the ancient archives. There's something else. The ancients left detailed instructions for creating exactly this kind of dimensional trap. They never got a chance to use it, but all the technical specifications are here. How long would it take to set up? Taemin asked. Working around the clock with both human and Vorthic technical teams? Maybe 10 days? The Devourers will be here in 14 days, Song reminded them. That's cutting it very close. Then we'd better get started, Lee decided. Captain Park, I'm putting you in overall command of the operation. Dr. Cho, work with the Vorthic technicians to modify the gateway network. Dr. Yoon, keep translating those ancient manuals. As the teams dispersed to begin their desperate work, Ambassador Kim approached General Vexstar. Why are you helping us? Your people have served the Devourers for centuries. Vexstar's alien features showed something that might have been shame. Because we have been slaves for too long. When the Devourers are finished with this galaxy, they will consume us as well. We have always known this, but we were too afraid to resist. And now? Now we have hope for the first time in centuries. Humans have shown us that the Devourers can be outmaneuvered. Perhaps they can be defeated as well. The next 10 days were a blur of constant activity. Human and Vorthic engineers worked side by side, modifying ancient technology with cutting-edge improvements. The freed alien diplomats contacted their home governments, spreading word of the threat and rallying support. Captain Song's science teams, working with Dr. Cho's quantum specialists, began placing dimensional anchors throughout the galaxy. Each anchor point required precise calibration to ensure the cascade effect would spread properly when activated, but the work was not without setbacks. On the fourth day, a Devourer scout ship appeared at the edge of the system. It was smaller than their main vessels, only the size of a large cruiser, but it demonstrated capabilities that terrified everyone who saw them. The scout ship phased through the human fleet's shields as if they didn't exist. Its weapons tore holes in space itself, creating miniature black holes that consumed everything nearby. In 30 seconds, it destroyed 2 human frigates and a Vorthic escort before disappearing back into dimensional space. We can't fight them. Conventionally, Admiral Lee concluded after reviewing the battle recordings, our only hope is the dimensional trap. On the 8th day, Dr. Yoon made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the ancient archives, he found records of other galaxies that had faced the Devourers. They're not invincible, he announced excitedly. Look at this, the Helix Galaxy successfully repelled a Devourer invasion 3 million years ago. The Spiral Arm Collective held them off for 2,000 years before falling. How? Taemin asked. Unity. Every single species in those galaxies worked together, sharing technology and resources without reservation. The Devourers can consume individual civilizations, but they have trouble with truly united opposition. This gave them a new strategy. While the technical teams continued preparing the dimensional trap, Ambassador Kim worked to forge an unprecedented alliance. Species that had been enemies for millennia agreed to fight together. Technology and weapons were shared freely between civilizations that had never trusted each other before. Even former Vorthic client species joined the alliance, bringing with them knowledge of Devourer tactics and weaknesses gained through centuries of unwilling service. By the 10th day, the modifications to the gateway network were complete. But there was one final problem that no one had anticipated. The dimensional cascade requires manual activation from the central control room, Dr. Cho reported. The ancient AI can handle most of the process automatically, but the final sequence must be initiated by a living being. What's the problem with that? Lee asked. The control room is at the center of the dimensional reaction. Whoever activates the cascade will be at ground zero when the pocket universe collapses. They won't survive. The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Someone would have to sacrifice their life to save the galaxy. I'll do it, General Vextar said immediately. My people have served the Devourers for too long. Let my death be the first step toward their destruction. No, Captain Taman said firmly. This is humanity's operation. I'll activate the cascade. With respect, Captain, Dr. Cho interrupted. It should be me. I understand the quantum mechanics involved better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I'll have the best chance of fixing it. As they argued over who would make the sacrifice, Captain Song's voice came through the communicators with urgent news. The main Devourer fleet has just entered the outer system. They'll be here in 4 days. The dimensional trap was ready. The galaxy species were united for the first time in history. But someone still had to pay the ultimate price to activate it. The final countdown had begun. The Devourer fleet filled the space at the edge of the Nexus Prime system like a plague of metal and flesh. Captain Du Hyan No, commanding the fast attack craft Valiant, was among the first to get a close look at them through his ship's advanced sensors. They're not ships in any sense we understand, he reported back to Admiral Lee. They're alive. Living creatures the size of cities with weapons that seem to grow from their bodies like tumors. The sight was terrifying. Each Devourer vessel looked different, as if they had absorbed characteristics from the civilizations they had consumed. Some had the crystalline structures of the Silicon Collective. Others showed organic curves reminiscent of the aquatic Delphini. All of them pulsed with an evil energy that made veteran soldiers feel sick just looking at them. But humanity's response was characteristically bold. Instead of waiting for the Devourers to reach Nexus Prime, Admiral Lee ordered a preemptive strike using the Dimensional Gateway Network. If we're going to die, let's make sure we take as many of them with us as possible, he announced to the combined fleet of human, Vorthak, and allied vessels. The attack began at dawn on the 13th day. Human ships emerged directly in the path of the Devourer advance, using the ancient gateways to appear where they were least expected. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers faced enemies who could match their mobility. Captain Kang's dreadnought Indomitable led the charge, its weapons tearing into a Devourer creature the size of a small moon. The aliens' response was immediate and terrifying. It opened a hole in space itself, trying to swallow Kang's ship whole. But the humans were ready for this. Dr. Cho's quantum shields deflected the spatial distortion, sending the attack back at its creator. The Devourer reeled in surprise as its own weapon wounded it. They're not used to prey that fights back, Kang reported. Keep hitting them with everything we have. The battle raged across multiple star systems as human ships used the gateway network to strike and fade like ghosts. Vorthak vessels, finally free to fight their ancient oppressors, attacked with desperate fury. Allied ships from dozens of species added their firepower to the desperate resistance, but it wasn't enough. For every Devourer ship that was damaged or destroyed, 10 more took its place. The ancient creatures began adapting to human tactics, learning to counter the gateway attacks. We're buying time, but we can't win this way, Admiral Lee admitted during a brief tactical conference. The dimensional trap is our only hope. Back on Nexus Prime, the argument over who would sacrifice themselves to activate the cascade continued. Captain Taman remained adamant that he should be the one, but he faced opposition from an unexpected source. I forbid it, said Dr. Yoon-Young Cho firmly. The cascade requires precise timing and deep understanding of quantum mechanics. If you make even a small mistake, the entire galaxy dies. And then train me. There isn't time. The Devourers will be here in hours. That's when Chief Engineer Se-Young Nam spoke up from his position at the ancient control systems. Actually, there might be another way. Everyone turned to look at him. Nam was interfacing directly with the ancient AI through quantum implants that allowed his consciousness to merge temporarily with the alien computer. The ancient AI has been alone for millions of years, he explained. It's tired of existence. But it's also been hoping for a chance to strike back at the devourers who destroyed its creators. What are you saying? Dr. Cho asked. I'm saying we might not need a human sacrifice. The AI is willing to override its preservation protocols and merge its consciousness with the dimensional cascade. It would essentially become part of the trap, using its own life force to power the final sequence. Dr. Yoon looked up from the ancient archives. That could actually work. The AI was designed by the ancients specifically to operate their technology. It knows the systems better than any of us ever could. But is it willing to do this? Taemin asked. Nam's eyes went blank for a moment as he communicated directly with the ancient intelligence. When he refocused, he was smiling sadly. It says it's been waiting for this opportunity for 3 million years. It wants to join its creators and finally rest. The decision was made. As the Devourer fleet approached Nexus Prime, the ancient I began the final preparations for the dimensional cascade. Throughout the galaxy, the quantum anchor points that Dr. Cho's teams had placed began to resonate in harmony. The space battle around Nexus Prime was unlike anything in recorded history. Devourer creatures the size of planets fought desperately to prevent the trap from activating. Human ships, supported by every allied vessel in the system, threw themselves into suicidal attacks to buy just a few more minutes. General Vexstar, commanding a Vorthak battle group, led a direct assault on the largest devourer creature. For all the species you have consumed, he shouted as his ships opened fire. For all the civilizations you have destroyed. The devourer's response shattered half his fleet, but Vexstar pressed the attack. His flagship rammed directly into the creature's central mass, creating an explosion that lit up the entire system. In the underground complex, the ancient AI spoke its final words through Chief Engineer Nam. Tell the galaxy that the ancients' final gift is vengeance for all who have suffered. Tell them that hope survives even in the darkest times. The dimensional cascade activated. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist around Nexus Prime, the gateway. Network throughout the galaxy blazed with energy as dimensional boundaries shifted and warped. Spacetime folded in on itself, creating a prison of pure physics that nothing could escape. The devourers realized what was happening and tried desperately to flee, but it was too late. The cascade effect spread faster than light, catching them in its inexorable grip. One by one, the massive creatures were pulled into the artificial dimension that the ancient AI had created. Captain Taemin watched from his ship's bridge as the Devourer fleet simply vanished, sucked into a pocket universe that existed between realities. The trap was working exactly as designed, but the cost was enormous. Nexus Prime itself was being consumed by the dimensional distortions. The ancient world that had stood for millions of years crumbled into quantum foam as the cascade reached its peak. All ships, emergency evacuation, Admiral Lee ordered. Get clear of the system immediately. The combined fleet fled through the dimensional gateways as Nexus Prime died. Behind them, the pocket universe collapsed in on itself, creating a self-sustaining prison where the devourers would spend eternity consuming each other in an endless cycle of futile hunger. When the distortions finally faded, there was nothing left where Nexus Prime had been except empty space and a small quantum anomaly that would serve as a permanent seal on the devourer's prison. The galaxy was safe. In the aftermath, representatives from hundreds of species gathered at Kepler Station to establish what would become known as the Galactic Federation. The Vorthak, freed from their forced servitude, became among humanity's strongest allies. The ancient gateway network, now under careful management, opened new frontiers for exploration and cooperation. Captain Taemin was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Federation exploration fleet. His first mission was to search for other galaxies that might be threatened by similar dangers. Ambassador Sora Kim delivered humanity's first address to the Galactic Federation. We came to Nexus Prime expecting to sign a peace treaty, she said to the assembled delegates. Instead, we found ourselves fighting for the survival of all intelligent life. But that's what humans do. We turn traps into opportunities, enemies into allies, and impossible odds into inevitable victories. The speech was broadcast throughout the galaxy, carried by the ancient gateway network to every inhabited world. It became known as the Hope Declaration, a promise that no species would ever again face extinction alone. Years later, historians would call the Battle of Nexus Prime the turning point in galactic civilization. It was the moment when dozens of different species learned to work together as one people, united not by conquest but by the shared experience of nearly losing everything. But to the humans who had been there, it was simply proof of something they had always known: when civilization is threatened, when hope seems lost, when the impossible becomes necessary, humanity will find a way. They always do. The final report filed by Admiral Taman contained a single line that became the unofficial motto of the Galactic Federation: when humans walk into a trap, they make sure they can turn it inside out. The galaxy had learned that lesson well, and across the dimensional barriers that separated realities, other galaxies facing their own threats began to receive a new kind of signal, not a cry for help, but an offer of alliance. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. They were teaching the universe how to hope. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.